The Ottawa Senators didn't get run out of the playoffs. That's the first thing. This wasn't a clown car exit or a humiliating public malfunction where the goalie turns into soup. The defense starts passing to ghosts, and the coach stands behind the team looking like he just found out about the rules. No, Ottawa fought, worked, bled, then died. Because the cause of death here isn't effort or courage. It's not that they didn't want it enough. That's a fake sports explanation that people use when they don't feel like using their brains. The cause of death is colder. Carolina got to pick which sport they were playing. There's your autopsy. The Hurricanes dragged Ottawa into a version of hockey where every clean path costed them a tooth. Every zone entry became a paperwork dispute. Every scoring chance had to be smuggled across the border with a fake mustache. That's Carolina playoff hockey. Not always beautiful, and it's not explosive all the time. Doesn't always make you leap out of your chair unless you're the kind of person who gets excited by forecheck angles. But it works. Ottawa spent too much of this series playing Carolina's game instead of forcing Carolina to play Ottawa's. That's the difference. That's the line on the table. The Senators were competitive, but they weren't in control. So Game 4 was a scoreless bloodbath. Game 4 was a scoreless bloodbath through the first 30 minutes. That's sounds like a good sign for the underdog, right? Drag it into the mud, make it ugly, turn it into one bounce, one screen, one stupid goal off somebody's kneecap. Except the problem here, Carolina likes dragging it into the mud. They're not some delicate sports car that panics when the road gets ugly. Carolina's a tractor with a graduate degree. You can't beat them by making the game miserable. They're already miserable. That's their brand. That's their living room, their furniture. So when Ottawa turned this into trench warfare, it didn't change the matchup. It just confirmed it. The Hurricanes were perfectly comfortable making this a hallway fight, and Ottawa needed more than survival. That's the hard part of this postmortem. Ottawa has real pieces. Brady Chook, Tim Stutzel, Jake Sanderson, Thomas Chabot, Drake Batherson, Linus Allmark. These aren't theoretical players. This is a real hockey team right now. But the playoffs or a real hockey team stops being the compliment and starts just being the entry fee. Welcome to the postseason. The cover charge is your spleen. The Senators got here. So good. Now the question becomes, what happens when the rink starts to shrink? Because that's what Carolina did. They shrank the rink. Not physically, although honestly, Rod Brindamore probably has a guy for that. They shrank it functionally. Less space, less time, less oxygen, less room for Ottawa's skill to become any sort of advantage. When the game got smaller, Carolina stayed Carolina. Ottawa became a team trying to solve Carolina, which isn't the same thing. The most obvious symptom was the offense. They didn't need more heart. They needed more usable offense. They needed more usable offense under playoff pressure. There's regular season offense, and then there's playoff offense. In the regular season, the offense can breathe, stretch out against Tuesday night matchups, against tired teams on travel legs and backup goalies who look like they just remembered they left the stove on. Playoff offense is different. It has to work through layers. It has to win second chances. And it has to make a goalie's life bad without waiting for the perfect play. It has to turn ugly possession into an actual danger. And Ottawa had moments, but Carolina had terms of conditions. That's why the power play becomes such a giant flashing red light. When 5-on-5 hockey gets jammed up, your power play has to be the escape hatch. It has to be the thing that says, fine, you want to turn this into a phone booth? We'll punish you for taking a penalty. But Ottawa didn't punish enough. In a series like this, that's not a detail. That's a cause of death. You don't get that many clean invitations against the Hurricanes. When you get them, you can't spend them passing around the perimeter like everyone's afraid the puck's going to explode. Shoot through the bodies, create rebounds, make the goalie guess, make the penalty kill rotate until somebody's spine looks like a question mark. Instead, too often, Ottawa's power play felt like it was trying to find the perfect goal against a team specifically built to deny perfect anything. And that's how you suffocate somebody. Not all at once, but shift by shift, one block shot at a time. And suddenly you look up and the series is basically over. Everyone's saying, man, that was close. Yeah, it was close. It's not alive. That's the false hope here. The false hope was the scoreboard, because the games were tight enough that Ottawa fans could reasonably say, yeah, we were right there in every game. And they were. But that's one of the cruelest phrases in sports, because it sounds encouraging, but sometimes it means that you lost the same way over and over again. Right there means the goalie kept you in it, the defense fought like hell, the forwards had chances. Right there also means the other team had just enough control to keep you one step short. That was Ottawa. They weren't miles away. They're one layer away. Unfortunately, in playoff hockey, one layer might as well be a canyon if the other team owns it. The time of death for me isn't necessarily the final horn. The final horn was paperwork. The time of death was when it became clear Ottawa was waiting for one break, while Carolina was grinding towards one. That's a different posture. Ottawa needed something to be different. They needed something to happen. Carolina was making something happen by preventing things from happening. That sounds stupid until you watch them do it for 2.5 hours. That's the Hurricanes' whole annoying magic trick. They beat you not only by scoring, but by making your best ideas arrive late, tired, and covered in fingerprints. And then, when they do get the goal, it feels less like lightning and more like a bill coming due. That's why this death isn't shameful, but it's real. Ottawa's season didn't end because the Senators lacked identity. It ended because Carolina's identity was more complete. That's the part that should bother Ottawa all summer long. Not that they got destroyed. They didn't. Not that they need to blow it up. And they don't. The better question is, what's the next version of this team when the game gets ugly? Because Ottawa has talent and they have bite. They have enough structure to be taken seriously. The next step is learning how to produce inside a series that's actively trying to delete your personality. That's what Carolina did. The Hurricanes looked at Ottawa and said, hey, cool roster, man. We'll be taking away the middle of the ice now. Ottawa didn't have enough counterpunches. That's the summer project. Not vibes. Develop counters. What happens when Stützle has no space? What happens when Tkachuk is being battled to a draw physically? What happens when the power play gets 5 chances and the building is begging for one goal? What happens when the first shot is blocked, the second lane disappears, and the power play is dead? Who makes the ugly play? Who gets inside? Who creates the second chance? Who scores the goal that looks stupid in the score and enormous on film? That's where Ottawa has to grow up. That's also why I wouldn't bury the franchise. The body on the table this season is not the future. It's an important distinction. What survives? The core. The belief probably survives too. The goaltending question isn't dead, even if playoff goaltending always gets dragged into the courtroom, whether it deserves it or not. The blue line survives, though health and depth matter because, shockingly, playoff hockey is hard on the human skeleton. The fan base, they survive with a better understanding of what the next step is going to cost. The coach? I don't think this is a fire everybody and scream into the river situation. This looked more like a team running into a more finished version of what it wants itself to become. That stings, but it's also useful. Carolina's not just a team that Ottawa lost to. Carolina's a pretty good measuring stick for the kind of grown-up playoff machine that Ottawa's trying to build. The verdict? Cause of death. Carolina got to pick the sport. The Senators were forced into low-oxygen playoff hockey, and they didn't have enough offense. They didn't have enough power play violence or enough series-changing counters to escape it. Manner of death was structural suffocation. Contributing factors? Special teams that didn't tilt the series, offense that had to work too hard for too little, and a Hurricanes team that's very comfortable making everybody else miserable for their living. Final ruling, Ottawa wasn't exposed as a fake. They were exposed as unfinished. Honestly, that's not the worst thing to be. Unfinished means there's something here. It means this wasn't a fluke trip to the grown-up table. It means the team has enough foundation to make this hurt for the right reasons. But hurt, still hurt. The Senators came into this series looking for proof that they had arrived. They left with proof that arriving is not the same thing as advancing. Carolina moves on, Ottawa goes home. And the lesson is sitting right there in the autopsy report. In the playoffs, it's not enough to survive the hard game. Sometimes you have to own it. Thanks for watching.